are moving to Western Australia, and I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Mike Jones, Managing Director of Impact Minerals, to tell us about the Lake Hope, the journey and where we're at now. Thank you.
Thanks everyone, and we can all hear, which is all good. We set up Impact Minerals quite some time ago to discover a world-class ore body, and we've been around the world, drilled a few holes here, there and everywhere, had a few minor successes. But this project here, the Lake Hope High Purity Alumina project, is in my view the world-class discovery that we've been looking for some period of time now. And why is that? That's because in the top 2 metres of this salt lake, which is about 500 kilometres east of Perth, is something in the order of about $20 billion worth of high purity alumina. And it's all about how quickly we can mine it and the cost at which we can mine and process it and get it into the market. We believe it's a transformational acquisition for us. It's a joint venture. We've got the right to earn 80% of it over the next couple of years, and we believe that it's going to drive our market cap significantly higher than where we are today. Why do we think it's world class? It's mainly because of the economics. This is the results of the scoping study that we put out in November, and we kind of knew these figures when we got into the joint venture, but it took us 6 to 8 months just to put it together. And some key figures here is that for a benchmark production rate of about 10,000 tonnes per annum of high purity alumina, the NPV, current post-tax NPV, is about $1 billion, 1.3 Australian billion dollars. Very good capital efficiency, 250 million market cap, good IRR, but the key number, which I've left in US dollars down here so we can look at other slides as we go forward, is that we believe that we can produce HPA at less than 4,000 US dollars a tonne. And that's very significant because the current incumbent producers of high purity alumina are the Chinese and the Japanese, and they're producing at between 15 and 20,000 US dollars a tonne, so considerably less than that. There are a number of other players in the space, the standout of which is Alpha HPA. Their code is A4N. I'll talk about them a little bit. They're producing probably 7,000 to 8,000 US dollars a tonne. We believe we can undercut and produce lower costs by 30 to 50% than anybody else in the world once we get into the market. And that's what makes this deposit a world-class deposit. It's a bulk commodity. There's no shortage of material that you can use to turn into HPA. And it's the same with all bulk commodities, whether you're looking at kaolin or even lithium, as we're seeing in the lithium space in the last 6 months. They're all bulk commodities. There's more than enough material there, but one of 4 things have got to be true in order for you to make it through the market cycle. You've either got to have the biggest deposit, you've got to have the highest grade, or, as in the case, for example, Pilbara Minerals, first to market, and they've been able to establish relationships with their customers, and they've sailed through this last downturn without any problem. Or you have to be one of, if not the lowest cost producers. And that's why I got into this project, because I knew almost from the minute I saw it, we were going to be one of the cheapest, if not the world's lowest cost producer, which means we have a huge commercial advantage over the next 10 or 20 years. What is high purity alumina? That's probably the first thing you're all asking in there. It's aluminium oxide, corundum or sapphire, depending on which version you want to look at, and it has a purity of 99.99% aluminium oxide. There's 100 parts per million of other things in there. There's also markets for 99.9% pure, and also for 5 nines, triple 9% in through there. Most of the bulk is in 4N and 3N in terms of a market, and that's where we're focusing our activities. Importantly, HPA is listed on the Australian Critical Minerals list, and that opens up all sorts of avenues for us going forward for grants and for funding. So what's it used for? For those of you who have Samsung phones, you're probably grateful that they're not exploding in your pocket as they were a few years ago. And for Tesla drivers whose batteries catch on fire, one of the things you should know about is HPA is used to help stop thermal runaway in lithium-ion batteries and other battery architectures. It's used to separate the heat that's generated between the cathode and the anode in these batteries, and if that's not done properly, you get this sort of thing, which you're glad it didn't happen in your pocket. The other big use, and in fact the larger market, is actually in LEDs. So most of the lights in here have got HPA in them, and the USA recently mandated that no more incandescent light globes can be installed. So there's a massive replacement globally as we move towards more energy efficient light systems. The LEDs are going to grow significantly. And believe it or not, in your smart TV screens, your OLEDs, your ULEDs, all the TVs that Samsung and LG and the rest of them are putting out have all got HPA in there. And if you've seen globally, more and more buildings are being converted into LED screens. So if you see the Samsung graphs for LED growth, it's absolutely enormous. So these are the two big markets to try and get into. And that's reflected here in the supply and demand curve. And sort of around about 2026, there's supposedly tightening of supply and increasing prices for HPA. And that's about the time we hope to be delivering into the market through a pilot plant that we should be constructing around about then. So what does it sell for? So the current benchmark prices are about 15 to 25,000 US dollars a tonne for your standard 4N. There is a big business to be made in 3N, and there's a smaller business in terms of volume, but very high margins in 5N. But we're probably going to be in this space to begin with, and the cream on the top would come in this 5N market in through here. So it's a high margin, high demand business, and we believe we can make a significant entry into that marketplace. The reason I came up with the 20 billion US dollar figure earlier is that for a material that's selling at 20,000 US dollars a tonne, we've basically got nearly 1 million tonnes of that material in the top 2 metres of that lake system. Hence $20 billion. We've got more than enough for a 50-year mine life. And as I said, it's a bulk commodity, no shortage of it. It's all about the cost at which you can mine it. So where are we? We are 500 k's east of Perth, in the middle of nowhere. Major mining centre of Forrestania in through here, in Norseman, big gold centre. And this is a satellite picture of the two lakes that host the resource. And the first natural advantage we see is that there's actually a fire break that runs 25 kilometres up to the nearest gazetted road. So basically the haul road is already half installed for us. And the resource lies in these two lakes in through here. It's part of a larger system. You can see there are smaller lakes, similar minerals perhaps in here, but they're also contaminated with a lot more other material. There's something very unique in these areas here which have allowed this particular clay to sit there. This is Roland Gotthard. He discovered the deposit, and this is how we drilled out 20 billion US dollars worth of material with a rubber mallet and a plastic push tube. The whole drill program cost us 60,000 US dollars. So that's the best return on a drill program you're ever going to see in your entire life. And this is what it comes out looking like. It's like plasticine. It's an evaporite, and amazingly enough, virtually all of that material is less than 1 micron in size. It's predominantly nanometer in scale, and for those of you who are physicists, what that means is that there's almost an infinite surface area to this clay, which allows incredible kinetics in the processing. So this is the East Lake. There's a high-grade portion in the lake. It's enough for at least 10 to 15 years starter pit. We're just going to drive in off the side here with a digger and a truck. We're going to stockpile in through here and probably campaign mine every 3 years, and we're going to truck the material off-site. So there'll be no processing on site at all. And so compared to conventional mining, we're going to have no drilling, no blasting, no crushing. We don't need power on site. We don't need water on site. So this will also have one of the lowest environmental footprints of any mine anywhere. We're going to leave a hole that's about 1 metre deep, and it's going to fill up as we go forward with water. That's going to evaporate, and basically this is the ultimate renewable resource because it's still forming today. We already have heritage clearance. That's a huge tick. So we've done the survey on the lake. There are no impediments to us mining the lake. We can move forward. We will have a mining agreement with the NAJU once the DFS is underway. And the secondly, an important thing is we've just received basically our baseline environmental studies, and there's no problems again with mining on the lake. So we are expecting the mining approval to go through in a very short period of time. So as I mentioned, the unique nature of these minerals and their very fine-grained nature basically just allows us to drop this into a vat of acid and various reagents. It goes into solution immediately, and through a very straightforward process, we can produce HPA. There's nothing complex about it. One of the processes is patented, the sulfate process, and we just recently announced a new breakthrough process which was even cheaper than the sulfate process, which we found hard to believe, but this is done at 270 degrees, this is done at 90 degrees with a different set of chemicals, and we remove one phase of processing. So we're expecting significant changes to CapEx compared to the scoping study. So we're optimising that at the moment. The 4 pillars of our PFS is the approvals. Mining lease application was supposed to go in late last year. Environmental studies got delayed. That's just arrived. So that'll go in the next quarter. Metallurgical test work, that's the key part of what we're doing. We're trying to optimise both of those processes, which gives us a bit of optionality in terms of the final product. Big thing for us is where we're going to build the process plant. Wherever it is, it'll be in an existing industrial yard, which means, and we're using fairly benign chemicals, which will also mean that getting the plant permitted is also going to be a very quick process compared to a conventional mining operation. And finally, and this is the key thing for those who aren't familiar with bulk commodities, this is where the biggest risk is for us, and you should always bear that in mind, is that we need to find customers for our product. That can take 6 months to 2 years to get people to take our product, test it, put it into their light globes, turn them on and off 1,000 times, put them into the TV screens, make sure they're giving all the right specifications there. By the middle of this year, we should be able to start that process, and by the end of the year, we should be able to produce a significant amount of material to hand over to clients for their test work. I mentioned Alpha HPA. They're very successful in this field. A number of players have tried in the HPA space and failed, mainly because their chemical process was not the appropriate one. And so Alpha HPA came up with a new process 4 or 5 years ago. Market cap recently hit $1 billion from a starting 10 million. We believe that if you get it right in the HPA space, we can drive ourselves up to similar lofty heights over the next few years if you want to come with us on that journey. So Impact, we have been around since 2006, founding managing director. We've looked at, as I said, many things, looking for a world-class deposit. I believe we've got one, and we're going to build on that over the next couple of years. We have very strong support from two German from a family office and a listed investment vehicle. They own about 22%, 23% of us. And we obviously got caught so acquisition was here. Got a very good response, got caught in the downdraft last year, and we're now finally fighting our way out of here. I always thought this was going to be a slow burn process, so it's not like we've made a sudden $1 billion discovery. That $1 billion is coming over the next few years. So successful 2023, maiden resource scoping study was done. Big things for this year, as I mentioned, is the PFS. We aim to complete that by the end of the year, get material into qualification. We will be able to build a modest pilot plant to help with the product offtake. 2025, we're hoping that mine lease is going to be granted, complete the DFS, and then we'll start mining and into demonstration plant production in hopefully 2026. So very active time coming forward. So to summarise then, we aim to be one of, if not the lowest cost producers of HPA globally. We have a unique deposit in your tier 1 jurisdiction of Western Australia. It's the best place to work anywhere in the world. We've got a cost-disruptive metallurgical process to go along with a unique deposit. And so we're currently building out our capabilities in met work, and in terms of the final product specification development, that's a big focus for us this year. And so we hope that by 2026 we're going to deliver it into a high margin, high profit business, and our timing will be right. So please come on the journey with us. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mike. What a great story. Are there any questions from the floor for Mike Jones from Impact? Just one over here.
Ken Henderson, I'm a shareholder of Impact. Just tell me, what do you do with the waste? Do you truck it back, or...?
Bizarrely, putting stuff back in the lake causes more environmental problems than than leaving it out. So there's a very valuable byproduct that comes out of both of them, which is in the fertilizer industry. So there'll be quite a lot of byproduct to sell as well. There's about 20,000 tonnes per annum of fairly benign silica-based material, very fine quartz. We'll be able to dispose of that pretty easily. It's 20,000 tonnes compared to a large mine development is nothing. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? We have time for one very quick one, maybe mine, Mike. The approvals, always a good question in Australian jurisdiction. What's your time frame?
Well, look, as you've seen, the low environmental footprint, that's the big thing. In particular, actually on the lake itself. There's no rare plants or animals living on the lake. Its natural pH is 3. So anything that does stay on there for a very long period of time, including your shoes, tends to disintegrate. So in terms of that, so we're being very specific about where we're going to put the mining lease. It'll stick virtually on the lake, and so we are anticipating that it will go through with very few requirements. We'll probably self-refer to the EPA just to double sure, but we're hoping, and it's also like a low-use thing. It's basically a small quarry, and there are avenues to speed up the process by doing that. So we're hopeful by the end of 25 will be virtually there for mining.
Okay, thank you so much. Please
Thanks.
thank Mike Jones from Impact.